new company. This would be a prospect that we found off of some type of research on the web or something like that, where we would find a new franchise that we want to work with. All right, so that would be the name of the company, and then I would have to go in and enter in things like the address and city, blah, 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 7, okay, and then there's some things that you have to enter in for all of our things. In this case, I'm going to enter in that it's a restaurant and that it came out of research, and it's a new customer. All right. Blah, 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 blah. Now I got to put in a contact. It won't let me save without a contact. So, okay, and I can put in some information about them. And then there's some user-defined fields, and this is something we use a lot: is user-defined fields. In this case, I'm going to say that it's a franchise that I want to contact right now, and that they are coming in as a qualified suspect, our very first stage in our sales funnel. I can put things like time zone, when it was founded, how many franchises they got, and things like that. Then I would save it. It would say primary phone number, so I go back here, and there we go. So then I've saved it. So I've created this new contact that is a company that would be a franchise. Then I'm going to go out to my dashboard that I use every day, and this is a dashboard that enables me to look at all of the prospects that I have and sort them by where they are in our plan. And I showed you that we entered in Gino's, may not have updated yet, and Gino's was a 1. So 1 is a qualified prospect. As they get more qualified, I enter in more information. I move them to 2, and then they go to introduction, appointments, quoted, closed, things like that. So this is the prospect list that I use every day to be able to manage people that are on my radar screen, not necessarily. And as they get to be customers, we come down the chain, and they'll get whether I enter in a quote. And then when I close a deal, and if they become mature, then that means that they bought more than just a couple things. Now I also use this as a sort of a poor man's CRM system. So in user-defined fields, I've created empty fields that I can go in and type in information as I make my phone calls. So I can put in the date of the call, who I talked to, whether I left a message, and I keep filling these things in. Eventually I might edit them out, but this is where, as I'm making my calls every day, I'm storing all the information and notes from those calls. It's not as sophisticated as a full-blown CRM, but it allows me to remember when was the last time I contacted them, did I send them PR information, or who I talked to, or things like that. And I could create as many of these empty fields as I wanted to be able to update that over time. But eventually, after a while, either you get sick of calling them and they don't answer, or they get converted to a customer, in which case you don't track them here anymore. So that's how I use a dashboard and Cyrious customer to manage prospects in my system. Now let's say I actually get an order, and I got to the point where the prospect Gino's wants me to go do an estimate. So for them, I'll come in here, and I hope I saved it. Oh, GIONOS. All right, then I'm going to start from scratch. Now, we have a little bit different model than most people, but all we really do is we sell channel letters and electrical signs. So, basically we sell them one channel letter sign. And one of the things I've created is, as I go through this, is a template. So I've created a template that I use for all of my new orders. And a template is basically a voided order that is set up in the structure that I like to use with all my orders. So all I did was copy in all those line items from that template, and it's created my typical order. So in my typical order, I've got a master product. In this case, it would be a channel letter product. Oops. Channel letter sign. And I might type some stuff in down here in the product description about what it is or things like that, and I might not. And then that's the only thing the customer sees. So if I did if I printed this invoice, the customer would see channel letter sign, and that's it. All of this stuff underneath it, these child items, are not visible to the customer. And I've set them up so that, here's the subcontractor that's going to build the sign for me. I've set it up that I can't even move that to the top level if I wanted to, because child cannot be top level items. The reason we do that is that when we come into the subcontract item, this product description ends up being where we put information on the subcontractor and things like that. Or never ever sees this. So if I went to let's say WIP dashboard, and I went to an open order, then I would see. I went to an open order and went to that subcontracted item. Get to see, all the pricing and the quote, and I put everything I can think of in here. So if I went back a year from now and wanted to know who did the quote and what's all the information, it's all in the product information description. And the reason I can put it in there is that the customer never ever sees that level of detail. Okay, so if I go back to this estimate I'm entering, so sometimes there's shipping, sometimes there isn't. So I have shipping here, and if it's not included, I would just delete it. Sometimes we do pylon, we have a pylon or monument that we put in there, so I've got that as a placeholder. If we need it, I'll do it. If we don't need it, I delete it. Then there's an installation. Whoa, I deleted the whole thing. Then there's an installation item. So an installation, I would put, I put a number in there, but I wouldn't know who the installer is till we go out and do research. But I put in something like $1,500 to install the sign, and I put in my standard multiplier, which for us is 1.43. And what I've got here is that's a guess. So all my templates start out with the standard of a guess. So I'm putting in the numbers here just so I have an idea of what this job is worth. And let's say I'm going to put in $3,000 for the sign. It's a fancy sign. And oops, there's a pile on that. So I'll just guess on numbers in the beginning, just so that I have something in there as a placeholder to help me out. But I will not use these numbers until we get them validated with a real quote. Okay, so now I've got the estimates in here. There's permit processing, things like that. So now I can go into my notes, which is where I put terms and conditions. And for terms and conditions, I've created that's kind of like a Chinese menu. You pick one from the top above this line and one from the bottom. So my typical things are 50% deposit required, and then I'm going to say it's an electrical, no excavation required. And that would then create all of the terms and conditions that would go out with a standard order. And I can vary that base type of job. At this point, I'll save it as an estimate. And it says, I got to say where that order came from. In this case, customer became mother with the research. All right, so now I've saved that as a pending estimate in our system. At this point, we start working down through through our workflow process by, the thing I have to do is I have to go in and I have to create a jobs folder. So we've created a template for jobs folders that every single job we ever do has structure in its job folder. So the folder for each of the, artwork, sign, signatures, compliance, et cetera, you can read them here. But everybody knows where to go, and everybody knows where the particular files they get. If we're getting pictures before, pictures after, we get survey results, we get quotes from the proofs that we use, current, final, production files, et cetera. Everybody knows exactly where to put files in the folder, so when you go looking for something, you can find it. In this case, I'm going to take this master folder, copy it, put it out in our main level, and paste it. And I'm going to rename it So I just give it the customer name, and that folder's there for people to start files in as they get them, either if I get them from the customer or if the guy's doing compliance has a some compliance, or the surveys are finished or quotes are coming in, everything gets stored in the folder. So I would strongly recommend to you listeners that this has nothing to do with Cyrious, but if you have any kind of structure, you just make sure it's something that's consistent and repeatable so that you can, and the team knows where to put stuff and you know where to go. All right, so now we're into the estimate, and now we need to start working it through our process. One of the main things that comes out of this is that we use stations to manage our workflow, and there are stations for estimates and orders, and there are a whole bunch of other stations for line items. So since this is an estimate, I'm going to show you that these are the stations that I can move it to: compliance, design, quote, fab and install quotes, and things like that. So in this case, the first step in our process is compliance. So I'm going to move it to the compliance station and save it. But what happens at that point is it actually, we have a macro that triggers an email to the guy who does compliance saying, hey, here's an estimate that needs to have compliance done. And you'll come into this estimate, and he will have expected me to fill in a certain amount of information, which I need to do. So come in here to the UDFs, and again, we have lots and lots and lots of UDFs. In this case, it's, what did I say, one name, So I'd fill in the address, installation address, which may or may not be the same as the customer address. If we're dealing with a franchise, and maybe the headquarters and maybe their home office, this is the actual installation address. If I have different information on TIDs and raceway colors and things like that, I would enter all that in here. But you can see that there's lots and lots of UDF that we have. You can do UDFs, you can color code them. You can put different things in different colors here. You can do color down in the fields. You can have check boxes. You can have drop-down boxes. You can have date fields. Lots of different things you can do with UDF. So one of the things that we typically want to know is, what's their opening date. If they have an opening date, we'll put that in here. Let's say it's, the opening date is October 14th, 15th, 14th. So that's filled in. I can fill in dates and lots of information out here. It's things like, do they have brand standards, installation company, GCs, all the information we have on an account is stored in UDFs with that particular order. So now that I've saved that, it's in the compliance station. We've created the dashboard that is it's on compliance. It's called Compliance and Site Surveys. So if we go to this dashboard over here, and where it says Estimates with Compliance, there's Gino's Hamburgers, and it says to the team that, hey, this is in compliance. Somebody better be working on getting the compliance done. And there's other, sometimes an order might need compliance, but this is just compliance. If I'd gone in, and so for now, I'll just say that, I'll leave it at that. It's on the dashboard that every day we look at it, is somebody working on this. Now, once the compliance is finished, we can change the station from compliance complete. Once he changes to complete, there's a me an email that says, hey, the compliance is complete to the next step. So if you don't know how to use macros, these are examples of all the different macros you can have. It's a macro, and you can describe it. So this is one that's going entry. Let's just take the one that's entry into compliance. So this is the first email that is sent out. So you can describe what there's a trigger. In this case, you want to run the trigger event is when the estimate station is changed to entry in progress compliance. It triggers an action. The action in this case is to send an email, in this case to Scott, who's the guy who does compliance. It basically says, hey, this estimate number, this company needs a compliance review. So he's alerted to that, even though it may be in the dashboard, he gets an email alert saying, hey, it's time to go work on this for compliance. And then it will show up on the dashboard, and you can tell me what's going on as we talk every day. So one of the other things that we do is that if we need to get, once he's done the compliance, I would then move it to design. We'll go through the design. I have my graphic artist design. Once we're finished with the design, I would then take this estimate. I would take this estimate and move it and say, okay, my design's good. I've sent it to the customer. They like it. It's compliant with the landlord stuff. Everything's good. It's now time to go get a quote. So I would move it to fab and install quote. So this is a situation where, again, an email is sent to Scott saying, hey, time to go get a quote from the fabricator and a quote from the installer. Now, he would then go to another dashboard. This would show up in another dashboard, which is our quote dashboard. So I have lots of dashboards. And on the quote dashboard, we should be somewhere on here, but if we didn't, we would see don't forget to save. So I've saved it in the fab and install one. Now I come here and there's my Gino's Hamburgers, one channel letters. I need a quote. So that's the station it's in, fab and install. So out here are all the UDFs that help him track who he's sending the quotes to. So there's installation quote fields and there's fabrication quotes fields. This all comes out of UDFs. So we go into UDFs, we go to ops. So he's got sections for installation candidates where we can put the name of the company, their address, contacts, information on them. And then we can put, so let's say we're going to send it to a subcontractor, and we'll send it to, ABC Signs, which is an installation company in Austin. And the other thing he would do is he would say, okay, I sent the request for quote out today, and then he would save that. Same thing for fabrication. We use Direct Sign Warehouse a lot, so we use Direct Sign Warehouse. And then when he saves that information in the UDFs, the next day when we're talking about the quotes, I'll be seeing his progress on the fab installation and fab quotes. And you can see this on here, there's a couple of people he sent quotes out to, and he'll get them back, and he gets them back quote received. And that tracks his progress on securing the precise quote for those products and services. Once he gets a quote back from the company, he would then go to the Gino's folder and shove that into the jobs folder. he would stick it in here. So if he gets a quote as a PDF or an attachment or some kind of thing, he would drag that in here. But you can also drag emails right into a folder. So I didn't know that for a long time, but if you have an email, but if you have an email Outlook file where the installer says, "Hey, I'll do the install for $1,500 or whatever it is," then you can just drag in that email right into the folder. So you don't have to retype anything. You don't have to create new files or folders. You just drag it in there, and therefore all the quotes will be there. It'd be nice if you relabeled it so that you know who did what, but they're all in there. And then if it comes time that I want to use this quote, I can just go and copy this information from here and put it right into Cyrious, into this is an installation quote, and then I can just paste this right in here. So that information, that quote that I have, whether it's come from a PDF or whatever, all that information's there in Cyrious. Like I say, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, if I want to remember who we did the business with, how much it cost, what were the terms and conditions, et cetera, it's all saved in Cyrious, as well as the job folders, but it's in there. And in this case, once we decided to work with a firm, I'm going to put ABC Sign as the actual vendor we use in installation. Now, the one thing you saw there before was it used to say guess. So I know as long as I'm looking in here and I see any guesses left, that I shouldn't be sending this quote to the customer. So until I have, the subcontractor filled in, and let's say it's DSW, and I change that to DSW, and I actually put in, that's not the wrong one, but I actually put in a number for the price. Then I know that once those guesses are gone, that whole order is good to go, and now I can look at my margins, and I look at different things, and get ready to send it to the customer. When they're finished with all those quotes, he goes and changes the station to RFQ complete, again notifying me, the salesperson, that all the RFQs are in place, and therefore I can go fill in my order and get everything done the way I want it. When I do that, I would then review it all, and I could move it to entry in progress, approved, and then I'll show you. So you can see there's different tabs for UDS to help you find stuff when you're looking for it. I'm not going to be able to find this one, but there's a field in here that's the sent date for the order. So I would then, when I move this estimate from entry approved, I move it to a station called entry sent. When I do that, it actually populates the field in Cyrious that has a date that the order was sent. So let's see if we can find. No, I can't find that one. But there it is. So there it's going to see this where it says estimate sent field. So that's a UDF field in the dashboard. It tracks that date. So now when I'm looking at my estimates dashboard, I can remember when we actually sent the estimate out to them. What's going on? What should I be following up with them? It's giving me the station that they're in. Am I waiting for them to get back to me? Is it on hold? Is it being in fab and install? So in one view, I have estimates, and I know, especially if I sort by station, I know which ones I've sent to the customer, and then which stations and where the status is for the rest. So the stations at the estimate level really help us in terms of tracking estimates through a whole system. So let's say Gino comes back and says, fantastic, love your price. just like all our customers always do. And then I would say, well, let's get the order, so we convert it, and I want to convert it to an invoice or an actual order. So I go through the conversion. I don't take a deposit here yet. Now it's an actual order. It's in work in progress, but its station starts. It's in review, and we have to decide again. We're moving this thing through different stations. That there are different stations for orders than there are for estimates. So in fact, in installation, in an actual order, it can go to any one of these stations, and it may be that we want to do the site survey before we do anything else. It may be that we want to do more compliance work. It could be waiting for the deposit. There's a lot of different stations that it could be in terms of sort of in this. I can't say anything. So there's a variety of different stations it can be in before we're even ready to start working on it. So these are all things that tell me where it is until we're ready to start the actual work. When we're ready to start the actual work, we go into, typically what happens is people say, okay, let's get going. They'll sign the documents, they'll send us a deposit, and then they want to get the permits. We've got to go get the permit before we can fabricate the sign. So we would put it into in-release review, permit processing. So then we have another dashboard, which is called release review. And then release review, we would see down here, Gino's Hamburgers is in release review, permit processing. So what we would do then, so this is the first time you're going to see us using line item stations. So everything so far has been estimate stations and order stations, but there's also stations for line items. So here is our bill of materials. This is for the actual Gino's order. There's the ABC signs and the things we talked about before. And we're going to now go to that set of line items to say which one of those do we need to start using first. So we have a permit processing. So obviously we're going to get permits. We want to start working on permit processing. So now we have for permits So now we have entry in progress permits. I'm moving it to station 1, which is where we got to go out and get the information to the installer. It could be a landlord approval letter, it could be forms to fill in, but we've got to go gather information to send it to the installation company so they can get the permit. This is to actually build the sign. We're not ready to do that. Site survey, we're definitely going to do a site survey. So I'm going to go to site survey and put that a site survey is required. Installation, the only thing we'll do installation at this point is we may very well cut a purchase order to the installer for all the work, but obviously at the beginning all they can do is go to the permit. Shipping doesn't need anything, more fabrication, sign permit processing fee. These are the actual fees that we're gonna pay, that we pay and then charge a customer. So these are the station 6, which is we don't have the fees yet. I need to get those before I can send the final invoice. That's why we track them separately. These are actual, those are part of the things when I double up here. And some of the master product stuff is not scheduled. At this point, I've kind of gone through and moved the things that I need to move in order to start the work. So I'm going to go back to another now I'm going to the site survey dashboard. And you can see there's Gino's Hamburgers, site survey required. So now Scott would go out, he'd contact the installation company and say, hey, we need to get you out there for a site survey, do all that. As soon as he's said, okay, we're ready to, they're going to go do the site survey, he would then move it to in progress. And then once they come back with site survey results, it would be in site survey, the information received. And there may be times we decide not to do it, things like that. But now, so every time he does a major activity, then he moves the station. And info received tells me that I should be able to go to the jobs folder and look in that Gino's Hamburger's survey information folder, and I should find the survey results. That's what it means code received. He's received it and stored that information in the jobs folder. So that's tracking site surveys. There's another dashboard which would be permits. So here on the left side, these are the ones we're working on getting the permits, and over here are the ones that we're waiting on the fees. So let's just Geno's. And let's say we find out that we needed a landlord approval letter, we get it, we send it to the installers. We've done everything we can for them to go ahead with the permit. And we would change this station to in permit prep. So that means that it's out of our court into the vendor's court. The vendor's going to go do the permit, and it actually populates that date automatically. So these are things that are macros that enable you to fill in a date field, which is a UDF. So it tells us that we've released it to the installer on today, and then we should hear from them fairly soon, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, that they've actually submitted the permit. And once we hear that they've submitted the permit, we would then go permit submitted. Now, the nice thing about permits submitted, it would populate that date as well. Now we know, okay, it's been submitted. Typically, they take a couple of weeks. Some cities take longer, but it gives us a date that we can then start tracking on when should we expect to hear that it's been approved. And then when we get the word back from them that it's been approved, we change it to approved. And once it gets changed to approved, we then go over here and say, I need to go get those fees. And once I get the fees, then I can change this station. But I would change this station to the fees recorded. The reason that we need the fees is that when it comes time to send the final invoice to the customer, if I haven't captured those permit fees and put them in there, I can't send the invoice. And we've had times where the invoices get delayed. We did the work, we installed the sign, everybody's happy, but I can't send it out because the installation guy has never given me the permit fees. So we start working on those early in order to be able to do it. So this whole dashboard is all about permits. So once the permit's been approved, well, now we can say, hey, it's time to go fully release this order. I mean, we've got everything we need. We've got the permit approved. We've got all the signatures. I would be tracking some of that in here. Like I would say, okay, we've got the client approval on the proof. We've got a signed invoice. The franchisor signed off on it. The landlord signed off on it. So we're good to go. And I'm now going to change this to a full release review. Now I'll come back to the release review. Hold that. Go back to my release review dashboard, and now we'll see that Geno's is now up here in a full release review. So full release review means I now have to go down here and release every item. So subcontractor would then go to at sub. I might have another subcontractor for, if I did a pylon sign or things like that. So here's another one. This might be the pylon sign. I'm moving them all to at sub. And the ones that don't need to be, I'm not going to do anything with, I would move them to not scheduled so they don't clog up our dashboard or whatever. So I touch every single item here so that it's going to be showing up on some dashboard because it's an activity we have. At this point, I would then take the order and change it to in progress. That's the last place an order will go. It goes into in progress and it sits there. The order sits in progress until we actually install it and we're finished and I send the invoice. The line item stations, however, continue to move like mad through this. So let's go look at Subcontract Dashboard. Now we've got a dashboard that we manage our subcontractors, and there's Geno's Hamburger. So it's channel letter signs down there. And now I would see that DSW is the vendor that we have. Obviously, they're a subcontractor. And we would now start going through the process of releasing it to the vendor. So at this point, as soon as Scott sends an email to DSW saying, hey, we want to order the following sign, he would come to add sub, and he would put that it's at VSW. Now I know that it's at sub and it's been released, it's been sent to that vendor. They have a process where they go enter it in their system, they do a bunch of stuff, and they finally send us back an acknowledgement that that they're actually working on it. At that point, we would change the station to at sub VSW released. That's important because there have been times where we send orders to vendors and they don't get them or they don't start on them or something's wrong. And we're sitting here fat, dumb, and happy thinking that they're working on it when they're not. So this release says they've actually done all their work, send us a proof if they need to, but they're actually working on the sign. And at that point, we would then we would actually get a delivery date, and we would go to the UDF, and in here, we would have a delivery, we would put in what they gave us for a delivery date. So let's say that they're going to deliver the sign on September 21st. So when we get the acknowledgement back, we have the ship date, we update the UDF, and now on the subcontract management dashboard, we've got a date out here for the BSW delivery, or if it's Gemini or some other vendor. So that says that we're looking at this dashboard. We know we've released it. It's not going to ship to the 21st. I'm not really going to worry about it. But as we start getting closer, we may contact the installer, say, hey, the sign's showing up next week. Time for you to get it on your schedule, things like that. If we have an actual opening date, and that's a ship date, feel pretty good. The sign's going to get there in time to get it out, get it installed before the opening date. If we're getting close, maybe we got to panic and start expediting. We should show up the installation company should be filled in and things like that. So, we've got information here that helps us manage the subcontractor. Sometimes you ship it to a different location than the installer. We track the different ship dates, things like that. Tracking numbers are in there. So you can do UDFs for pretty much anything you can imagine can be put into the UDF. We also have a dashboard for installers. So this is doing very similar work for the installer. So there's Geno's. It's at the third party. So our installation company, I got to open that up, put ABC in there. I won't do that because we're running out of time. But the installation company would be there, and then as soon as he issues the purchase order to the installation company, he would then come down and change the station to install third party released, meaning that he sent them an order for the work. Now, one of the things we have to do for our insurance is we have to get a certificate of insurance for every single one of our subcontractors with us as a named insured, or we're not covered under their insurance, and therefore I have to pay for their insurance. So at this point, we start a certificate of insurance process where he sends it out, says, hey, I need a certificate of insurance. Their insurance company sends it to us, and when they send it to us, we check the box. There's also a subcontract agreement our insurance company makes them sign. They have to send that. So, I manage. I stay on top of Scott until we get those things back from the subcontractor. We can't do work with them unless they get that. The PO sent date would get populated, things like that. So there's lots of different things. Are there restrictions on when you can go on site? Don't drive on the pavers, any kind of thing you can think of in terms of installation access issues and things like that. Again, UDS there. I'm going to go back to subcontracts. Now the sign is released. We come out to the 21st, and all of a sudden we get notification that the sign has actually shipped. So then we would move it to that sub shipped. And then a couple of days later, it shows up at the subcontractor, so we would get the at sub delivered. So once it's at sub delivered, you really don't need to worry about it on this dashboard. You're really only managing installation. So now we've got our installation dashboard, which we talked about. That doesn't really give us a view of what's going on, so then we use a calendar. This is the installation calendar, and by putting it into at installation third-party release, actually generated another macro, generated a contact thing for me where Gino's Hamburger's in here, and I'm going to put, general letter install, okay? And now I'm going to move it out of that call to an appointment. These are fixed things within Cyrious, but I can use them to mean different things for us. So appointment means something to us. It's in all the events. Now that comes out as a blue. Blue means, it's on the calendar, but I don't have a firm date or things like that. It's going to take a while for that sign to show up. Remember, it's going to ship on the 21st of next month. And, so I'm just going to shove it out here. Some cases we put it on the sidelines until we get a better idea when it's going to get installed. If we get a call from the customer that says, you absolutely positively beyond a shadow of a doubt have to install it on this day, we change it to black. If we get the installer to say, I'm going to come out and install it on Wednesday, we change it to white. If we have a service call, hey, the sign doesn't work, can you come out and take a look at it? We make it yellow. So we're using the limited color coding that you have on the calendar, but you can see how easy it is, when you get the word from the customer, from the installer, that they might get out there next Wednesday, you might do that. Now, all of a sudden the electrical wasn't ready or things like that. So moving things around the calendar is pretty easy compared to what we used to do with whiteboards and stuff like that. So this is all pretty simple. So then at the end, we get, once the installation is complete, we would mark this complete activity. And you can type in notes and stuff in here if you have anything to think about. And then it comes off the board. So at that point, the order would then get changed to build. So we just go to build, installation third party complete. And once it goes to build, it's really out of the operations world. It's no longer in, the sort of the operations of tracking things through the system, but it's built, time for the salesperson to send out the invoice, which I would do. And then once we received a payment from the customer, we would go to the payment screen, as you all know. We would enter in the payment. And then when the payment happens, we actually get a macro, order macros, and a payment macro. So anytime we get a payment from the customer, any payment on an order, it triggers an email to the customer that, payment macro right here. And it generates an email, the invoice to the email, and it generates an email, and the email details, detail. But in the body of the email, it says, thank you for your order, it's all complete, let us know if you have any problems, yada, yada, yada. So, so you can have it live to say whatever you want. It doesn't send it automatically to the customer. You could, but we're nowhere near to risk that. So but it generates it, it sends it to me, and then once I get a chance to review it, I can just, I've got the customer name in there, I've got all the email addresses. It's easy for me to send out an email that says, hey, we received your payment, thank you very much. And people appreciate that you're actually acknowledging their payment. And you can do things like acknowledge virtually any step in the chain. We have a program we call our 10-point touch program. And a lot of that is sending out emails automatically to the customer when different things happen, like payments and, that the permit was received, it was released to production, et cetera, et cetera. So my opinion is people are getting pre-spoiled by, Amazon and all these other companies that are getting notifications when things happen. Well, same thing that our customers want. They want to know what's going on. And if we're sending them periodic updates like permit submitted, permit approved, et cetera, they're less anxious about the whole thing, and therefore they don't call us saying, hey, what's going on? I haven't heard from you in 2 or 3 weeks. So by doing that and tracking that, it enables us to stay on top of that kind of stuff. So that's a lot of stuff in 45 minutes. We have a lot more dashboards that are out here. So for those of you who do in-house production, we used to have a production dashboard where you can track things that are in production. So so there's a production dashboard. We don't do any production anymore, so I don't have to worry about this. But you could have stuff that's in different stages of production, different stations, different people, things like that. We had a vendor dashboard, that stuff that we ordered from third parties. Could be sheets of material, could be Gemini letters, could be all sorts of stuff. So we actually had a vendor dashboard. So there's lots of different dashboards you can create. I track my daily metrics on a dashboard. So I hit this button and it generates my metrics for the day, the week, the month, accounts receivable, et cetera, et cetera. So there's just kind of an endless list of things you can put on dashboards that that can help you. We do one. Whoops. Okay. It's telling me my time is up. So on that, I will close. But it's a pretty powerful tool to use dashboards, to use UDFs, to use macros, and stations to really manage your workflow within, and it's all within Cyrious. The end.
Well done, sir.
I'm not sure if you want to take any questions or if you.
I can hear you.
Okay.
I'll be happy to take questions. I know that people are going, but I'll be happy to give it a shot.
Okay. Yeah. So if anyone has questions, go for it.
I don't think we have the time for all my questions.
It's a lot. Let me just tell you that when I first set it up, probably took me a weekend of sitting down and setting up the stations, and some of that was having mapped out the you're going to map out your workflow and take your current paper or your whiteboard system, and it pays to have gone through that so that you have a clue about what to what you can and can't do or what you want to do. But it took a weekend to set it up, and then we make changes all the time. I made 2 or 3 changes this week. So you're continually tweaking it and updating and changing fields and changing what you see on the screens and stuff like that. So it's pretty powerful.
Tom, can I assume you have everyone in your organization has a license?
So everyone in my organization, I have 1 employee. So yes, he has one. When I actually own, I think I have 5 licenses, maybe even 6 licenses. So it's yes, you need to be able to make that investment that everybody has Cyrious at their desk, so that they don't have, I hate to say the excuse, but that as they finish doing something, they can then have Cyrious open, go over there and change the station to the next station. So if they're the designer and they're finished the design, then they need to put design complete. If they're in the operations side, that they can move the station. They don't have to go to a central terminal to do it. So yes, I purchased a license and I purchased an extra monitor for every user so they could have it at their fingertips. Did that work? Hell no. You still got around to the daily meeting and you were moving things in the meeting that should have been moved the day before. So discipline is an important part of all this, and it's easier to have discipline with one person than it is with many.
What version of control are you running?
What did it say? 5.6. Hold on a second here. Go back to whatever the latest is. 5.6.
Okay. Is that through the cloud or just?
It's when I say the cloud, I have a cloud service through my IT group, so it's not the Cyrious cloud, but I run all my applications on a cloud service from an IT group, so I don't have to back it up. I don't have to do any of that, and you can use it from anywhere you have the internet. So I run Cyrious, I run QuickBooks, I run email, I do all my folder storage there. So I access it here in my home office, and my 1 employee who lives about 50 miles down the road accesses it from his home office, and it's just anywhere you can get to an internet connection, you can use it.
Oh, okay.
It makes it a little more complicated when we're doing what we're doing here today, but it makes it a lot better knowing that I don't have to worry about backing up anymore. I used to have a lot of hard drives.
Goodness, yeah. So that's a local IT organization that you work with.
Well, they're in Austin. I was living in Austin for the last 16 years, but in January I moved to Seattle. So, that picture you saw, the mountains and the sunrise, everything, that's right out my office window. So
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
staring at the Puget Sound and the eagles and the boats and all that stuff.
Oh, that's
But
great.
they're in Austin.
Oh,
Yep.
beautiful. Okay.
As I say, every day is very, very casual day. My commute is now downstairs. I got rid of all my production workers. I got rid of all my design workers. I got rid of I got rid of all but one. But I'm a broker, so when you get right down to it, I don't make signs anymore. I only sell them. We track. So that's why we can track everything here, and I never have to get up to go out in the production line or find out what somebody's doing. It's all no. You've got a whole other set of problems of managing people remotely, and how do you get installers to do what they say they're going to do, and things like that. So you're trading one set of problems for another, but that enables us to do jobs all over the country.
That's good.
I shaved for you today. I don't usually do that. I never see any of my customers. Even if we're doing a video conference, I use a program called Ring Central for my IP phone system that works great, and it has video conferencing. So my one employee, we have a meeting every morning at 6:30, another one at 10:30, another one at 2. We meet 3 times a day. All we do is pop up the dashboard, bang, 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 go through them. I get my status. I know what's happening. And then he goes back and does stuff, and we're updated by the next meeting. So it's really helped me a lot in terms of staying in control of this business. And one of the things we used to find with orders is, with a lot of line items in there, you would just lose track of what was going on. Or all of a sudden the customer would call and say, "Hey, where's my such and such an order?" And you go like, "Well, I don't know what to say. I don't know where it is." So you would, the nice thing about this is every line item is tracked on a dashboard somewhere, so that we haven't lost track of things like we used to.
Sounds like a pretty good system.
Well, and the reason I volunteered to do this is that I always felt like we could use Cyrious to do a lot more than we were, and I kept saying it, but just never did anything about it. And finally learned how to do dashboards, and I tell you, the videos are a lot better now than they were back then. But you can learn a lot about macros and UDS and the different things by the videos, but you've got to just at some point just get down and dirty, roll your sleeves up and start doing it. But it much like every software program you use, there's a lot more horsepower in there that I don't even touch. So there's more things we could do in terms of account management or automated different things. So we just scratched the surface. I will say that I've never had a single employee who was willing to really stretch the envelope. So it's really kind of all on me.
Sounds like you've done a good job with it. It really does.
It makes a big difference, and it's part of our selling proposition. When I'm talking to customers about what we do and how we do it, the fact that we have a system like this that it enables us to keep track of everything, enables us to be responsive. I think it's a positive selling point to those people who care about that kind of stuff.
Well, right. Do you find you work fewer hours or just as many? Just different?
I work all the hours I can. All the hours I want to. I think the work hours are more related to the volume of business than they are to necessarily having a tool or not. It's enabled me to move here without worrying about a physical space. It's enabled me to do to sleep better knowing that I'm on top of things. So I think it's definitely saved me time and made us more efficient. But I can still work as many hours as I want to.
Right.
But there's some days I quit at 2:00 and go walk the dogs for an hour. We do start at 6. Being on the West Coast is a challenge. So we start at 6. So
Oh, that's right.
one of the other things that it enables me to do is that, and I tell again, a benefit to the customer, which is when you try to get a hold of us, we're sitting here ready to take your call. I'm not running around town checking on jobs. I'm not out doing my own site surveys. I'm not in the back, yelling at production people or helping them unload stuff or print things or whatever. When they call, I answer the phone, and being able to get a hold of somebody is so important that it ends up being a competitive advantage